This lesson will explain how to multiply a tenth by a tenth. Let's have a look at this example. 3/10 times 4/10. Let's see what we already know about these numbers. We know 3 times 4 equals 12. We also know that 3 times 4/10 equals 1 and 2/10. So going back to our original number, 3/10 times 4/10, let's have a look. I know that if I had 3/10 times 1 whole, my answer would be 3/10. But I'm not even multiplying my 3/10 by 1 whole. I'm multiplying it by a number that's smaller than 1. So I know my answer has to be smaller than 3/10. I do know that 3 times 4 is 12, but 12 is far too big of a number. I know that 1 and 2/10 would also be too big of a number since it's already bigger than if I multiplied it by 1. So my only answer that makes sense in this case would be 12/100ths. So a tenth multiplied by another tenth always equals a number in the hundredths. We can relate this to what we already know. 10 times 10 gives us 100. 5/10 times 2/10. Now let's see what we already know. We know that 5 times 2 equals 10. But we know that 10 is far too big of a number for the answer. We also know that 1, or 1 and 0/10 would be far too big since 5/10 times 1 is only 5/10. So the only option that makes sense here is 10/100ths, or we could also write that as 1/10. They are equivalent. The next example is 3/10 times 3/10. Well, I know that 3 times 3 equals 9, but I know that's far too big of a number for the answer here. I also know that 3 times 3/10 is 9/10. Again, that's far too big of a number. So 3/10 times 3/10 has to equal 9/100ths. And our last example, 7/10 times 3/10. Well, we know that 7 times 3 is 21, and that's too big of an answer in this case. We know that 2 and 1/10 would also be too big. So our final answer for 7/10 times 3/10 has to give us 21/100ths.